Welcome to the fourth week in our series, Questionable Life. Here's the big idea for this session. The people that we engage with, as well as the people that we avoid and sometimes judge, reveal a lot about the condition of our hearts. This week, we want you in your small group time to challenge each other to build relationships with others in the same way that Jesus did. The key passage that we want you to take a look at comes from Matthew chapter 9 and is about the calling of Matthew, who was a tax collector. It starts like this. Jesus went on from there, and he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. He said, "Follow me," and so Matthew got up and followed him. Now I want to pause here for a second, because we need to understand the significance of what is happening in this exchange between Jesus and Matthew. Matthew was an outsider. He was a tax collector who made his money from extorting his own Jewish countrymen. And one scholar writes this about the Jewish tax collectors of Matthew's day. They were easily the most hated men in Hebrew society. They were considered to be despicable vermin. They were not only hated for their extortion, but also because they were the lackeys of the Romans, not unlike how the French saw the Nazi collaborators during World War II. These Jews could not serve as a judge or as a witness in a court session, and they were even excommunicated from the synagogues. They were the lowest of the lowest. So when Jesus walks by, and he asks Matthew to follow him and to be one of his disciples, it was definitely questionable behavior on Jesus' part. But the story gets even better. Matthew continues. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. Well, when the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Well, on hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. Go learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners." Jesus consistently engaged with people who were different than he was. This story about Matthew is not an isolated incident. It's just a pattern of how Jesus lived. He regularly reaches out to lepers that others avoid. He reached out to a Roman soldier whom people in his day would have considered part of an oppressive and violent regime. He stops to talk to women whom other Jewish men would have ignored and viewed as unimportant. All throughout the scriptures, Jesus regularly spends time with those that others would avoid. Jesus invites every person, to find their way back to God, and he invites every Christ follower to engage in questionable relationships. Jesus is asking us to defy human nature and to follow him into some relationships that might seem questionable to others. Maybe you're not so sure of this because you're afraid of what others will think or of what this relationship will demand of you. Maybe it's because you're being a little selfish and those other people, in your mind, have nothing to offer you. Maybe it's just because you're too busy. Whatever it is, I want to challenge you to be honest with your small group and allow Jesus to challenge you. If we will give Jesus room to speak into the relationships in our life, then the rest of the world will notice, and they will want to know more. Have a great small group.